Picture a receiver jogging through his route who isn't hurt or tired, but just not going full speed, because he doesn't feel like running at that time.
George Pickens at the top of your screen, and because of a lazy route, he does a pick route here, but instead of cutting in front of the DB's face, he literally goes right through him.
Coaches are yelling on the sideline and fans are furious, but somehow at the end of the year, this guy is still a Pro Bowler sitting top 3 in the entire league in receiving yards. That's George Pickens. He might be the least efficient route runner in the NFL and one of the most efficient producers at the position at the exact same time, which honestly doesn't make any sense. We're going to be covering the player that nobody could agree on coming out of the draft and explaining the real reason why walking on a lot of his routes doesn't kill the production as it should. Look, to understand any of this, we're going to have to go back to Georgia because that's where it all started. George grew up in Hoover, Alabama, and by his senior year, he was a problem for anyone trying to guard him. 96 catches, almost 1,400 yards, and 16 touchdowns made him a 5-star recruit that every big program in the country wanted. He committed to Auburn first, but then on signing day, he flipped it to Georgia instead, and Auburn fans never really forgave him for that. At Georgia, the talent showed up immediately. As a true freshman in 2019, Pickens led the entire team in catches, yards, and touchdowns. He put up 49 catches, 727 yards, and 8 TDs. It's kind of wild he showed up at one of the best programs in the country and immediately became the best receiver on the roster. The thing is, that freshman year is also when the character concerns started showing up on tape. Against Georgia Tech, Pickens got into a fight with the defensive back, threw punches, and got ejected from the game. Kirby Smart didn't sugarcoat it afterwards. He called it selfish and called it undisciplined. The punishment carried over. George sat out the first half of the SEC championship the following week because of it. Then came the water bottle incident against Tennessee, where he squirted a water bottle at the end of the play at their quarterback and received an unsportsmanlike penalty for it. It's a small thing on its own, but stack it next to the ejection and you start seeing a pattern. Not a bad kid, but a guy who couldn't always keep his emotions out of his own way. His junior year was supposed to be the year he proved everything, but instead he tore his ACL in the spring and missed almost the entire season, playing only 4 games total. And then in the biggest game of his college career, the national championship against Alabama, he comes off that injury and hauls in a 52-yard catch that helps set up Georgia's first score of the game. Georgia wins the title and Pickens gets his ring. Heading into the draft, he had a complete resume on both sides of the ball. Freshman All-American, a fight and a suspension, a water bottle penalty, an ACL tear, and one enormous gutsy catch in the biggest moment college football has to offer. Just oozing pure talent sitting right next to a track record that made NFL front offices nervous. That tension, talent on one side and discipline questions on the other, is exactly what NFL teams had to wrestle with when they sat down to actually rank this guy on their draft boards. When NFL scouts sat down to grade George Pickens in the draft, you couldn't get 2 of them to agree on where he should actually go. Some evaluators had him as a top 10 talent regardless of position. Others flagged him as the single biggest boom or bust name on the board. It was all the same tape, but 2 completely different conclusions, and that split alone told you something was wrong with the picture. One anonymous scout put it bluntly during the pre-draft process. On 85% of Pickens' snaps, when he wasn't the target and the ball wasn't coming his way, the team might as well have been playing 10 on 11. A guy who's a nightmare for the defense on one play and invisible by his own choice on the next 4. The second effort becomes a question mark, teams stop asking can he do this and start asking will he do this, and so he slid. Round 1 came and went. 10 receivers heard their names called before George did. He sat there through the entire first round, and by his own admission later, the weight got into his head. He finally came off the board 52nd overall in the second round to the Pittsburgh Steelers, but the pick actually became a little bit iconic. Cameras caught him getting the call in a shiesty and basketball shorts, completely staring at the TV like he had been expecting to wait all night. It went viral immediately. Some people thought it was funny, others saw it as exactly the couldn't care less attitude that made teams pass on him in the first place. That image became the lasting picture of his draft night either way. But the reason for his slide was simple. Teams couldn't figure out which version of him they would get on Sundays. The guy snagging one-handed grabs down the sideline, or the guy jogging through a route because the ball wasn't coming his way. Or worse yet, the guy getting into fights just because he's bored. That kind of uncertainty in the NFL costs you more than a slow 40 time ever could. Which leads us to the question heading to his rookie year. Would Pittsburgh get the receiver they hoped for, or not? And that answer is a mixed bag. His talent was just on full display that game. That catch alone told the league everything the scouts had been arguing about was real because the tools were never the issue. He finished that rookie season with 52 catches, 801 yards, and 4 TDs, and he did it on an offense that was a complete mess, rotating quarterbacks and nothing resembling an established passing game. For a rookie to lead in production on a broken offense like that says plenty about how good he already was, even without the structure other young receivers get to lean on. But the effort questions never fully went away, and they came roaring back in year 2. Against the Colts, George didn't block on a run play, and afterward he admitted it flat out. He said he stayed off the block because he didn't want to get injured staying engaged too long. He told you directly that he made a calculated choice not to go full speed on a play that didn't involve the ball. And once you say that out loud, the quitting label sticks with you whether you wanted to or not. A few weeks later, after a 2-catch negative yardage performance against Tennessee, Pickens posted "free me" to his Instagram story and then deleted it. He walked it back afterwards, said it had nothing to do with the team, but the timing did damage. Nobody posts "free me" after a big game. Then came Christmas Day against the Chiefs. That's the one that really stuck. Pickens cut his route short instead of running it all the way through. Russell Wilson, trusting that route to hold the safety, threw it into the red zone and got picked off. Then Roethlisberger broke it down after the game and didn't hold back, and the rest of the media piled on right behind him, showing the replay again and again. Mike Tomlin defended him publicly, said the route had nothing to do with the interception, but almost nobody agreed with that statement. Now here's the part of the story that actually makes it so strange. Despite every one of those moments, you have to look at what actually happened in the stat sheet. George led the Steelers in receiving yards in 2 of his 3 seasons there. He became, without much argument, their clear top deep threat. In 2023 alone, he posted an NFL high 18.1 yards per catch, the best mark of any receiver in the entire league that season. This is a guy who, on a documented number of snaps, was visibly not going full speed and not finishing routes. And he still outproduced receivers around the league who never took a play off in their entire lives. That's not supposed to be possible. Effort and production are supposed to move together. With Pickens, they didn't. And that split is exactly what convinced Pittsburgh it was time to move on from him. So May of 2025, that's when Pittsburgh finally decided to pull the trigger. They shipped him to Dallas for a 3rd and 5th round pick, and in that same month, they brought in DK Metcalf to replace him. 2 big-bodied guys swapping sittings in 1 month. Now that alone told you this wasn't about talent. The thing is, it was a house-cleaning move. The national reaction came in fast, and it wasn't kind to Pittsburgh. The framing was consistent everywhere. Dallas just got a top 10 talent at a discount, and the only reason the price was that low is because of makeup, not football ability. Nobody questioned whether Pickens could play. The debate was whether Dallas could handle him better than Pittsburgh did. 4 weeks into the season, CeeDee Lamb went down with an injury. Just like that, Pickens wasn't the number 2 option running behind a star anymore. He was a guy defenses had to build a game plan around, whether the Cowboys were ready to hand him that job or not. That shift sparked a real argument for people who actually watch this for a living. Emmitt Smith and Shannon Sharpe went back and forth on it, and their disagreement captures the debate around Pickens perfectly. Smith's take was a true number 1 doesn't pout when he doesn't get the ball, doesn't disappear against double coverages, and finds a way to be useful no matter what the defense throws at him. Sharpe's counter was simpler. Give the guy the ball and put him in the right situation, and he'll show you what he can do. Neither one of them was wrong exactly. They were describing 2 different versions of the same player. The guy who shows up when it's easy, and the guy who checks out when it isn't. But the debate misses the bigger point, because what actually mattered for George was an offensive structure around him for the first time in his career. Dak Prescott is a real established starting quarterback, not a rotating cast of guys trying to hold on to a job. CeeDee Lamb is a legitimate wide receiver 1 lined up on the other side, drawing attention away from him instead of the reverse. For 3 years in Pittsburgh, Pickens had neither one of those things. In Dallas, he suddenly had both. The difference in supporting cast between these 2 situations is night and day, and it's exactly the kind of change that could unlock a player like George. Now on paper, this looked like the perfect reset, new team, new expectations, real weapons around him. For a while, it played out exactly like that story was supposed to go. But even in a new building with a new QB, new running mate, the walking never fully disappeared. Look at what Pickens did with that fresh start. 93 catches, 1,429 yards, 9 touchdowns, 3rd in the NFL in receiving yards. In a league with over 100 qualified receivers, he finished ahead of almost all of them in the one number that actually matters. But here's the number that really tells you how efficient that season was. The receiver who led the league in yards caught 26 more passes than Pickens. George wasn't compiling through volume, he was doing it through explosiveness, one big play at a time. His average sat at 15.4 yards per catch, and he tied for the second most contested catches in all of football. On those jump balls and 50-50 throws, he won the ball 56% of the time. Compare that to his rate in Pittsburgh, sitting between 32 and 37% across his 3 seasons there. Now, that's not a small jump. He unlocked a different level of trust between quarterback and receiver with Dak Prescott. That kind of leap doesn't happen by accident, and it shows a quarterback who trusts his guy to go get it. But the habits from Pittsburgh followed him to Texas, and Richard Sherman called him out after a Thursday night game, saying that George looked disengaged, and the tape honestly backed it up. On a slant route that had been unstoppable for him all season, he didn't attack the ball and it popped into the air for an interception instead of the easy conversion it should have been. Later in that same blowout, he didn't even bother chasing down a deep ball that landed a few yards past his final stride. 2 plays, the same game, pointing at the exact same pattern people saw in Pittsburgh. Then came the bus incident. Pickens missed the team bus before a game against the Raiders and got benched for the opening series as punishment. He went out that same night and put up 9 catches, 144 yards, and a touchdown. Benched for disciplinary issues in the first quarter and still one of his best performances by the end of the whistle. That's the Pickens paradox in a microcosm. The discipline problem and the elite production showing up in the exact same game. So here's the thing, the walking never left, and it didn't get fixed. It also didn't get coached out of him. It just got surrounded by a real quarterback and a real second option drawing coverage away, and that combination made the walking look a whole lot less costly than it used to. The real question is why a guy who visibly takes plays off keeps getting away with it. The eye test gives you the answer. Not every route Pickens run is supposed to require the same amount of effort in the first place. What he's built to do on the football field is different from what most receivers are built to do. And that's the thing, not every route on the football field is designed to matter that much, and that's what a lot of people, myself included, miss when we talk about these players. On plenty of snaps, the ball was never coming to Pickens in the first place, and his route tree is built around that reality. On a run play or a screen play to the opposite side of the field, him not running doesn't change the outcome at all. The ball isn't landing in his hands no matter how hard he runs. So when George jogs through those, he's not quitting on the offense, he's conserving energy on a play that was never built around him. Where he actually lives is downfield in traffic, fighting for the ball at the catch point. We're talking jump balls, back shoulder throws, and slants where he uses his frame to bully a corner instead of using his legs to shake one loose. And that's his whole identity. He's not trying to separate from a defender with his route, he's trying to outmuscle that defender once the ball's already in the air. And that's a completely different skill set than what we normally call route running. Route running is typically about the setup and the leverage before the catch. What Pickens does is about the moment the ball arrives. It's a catch point skill, not a separation one, and those two things get judged by completely different standards. He was winning contested catches at a 56% clip in Dallas, and that number means something for Dak Prescott. On a throw into tight coverage, that would be an incompletion or a pick for almost any receiver, but Prescott can just put it up and trust Pickens to go get it. That trust is the entire value proposition. It's not about how clean his routes look, it's about what happens in the 2 seconds after the ball leaves the quarterback's hands. But here's the flip side. That same habit is exactly what got him benched in Pittsburgh, fined thousands of dollars, and eventually traded away. Teams don't hand out patience for free, they don't accept a receiver jogging through routes just because the numbers work out in the end, at least not for long. That kind of tolerance gets earned, and only after the receiver proves it over and over that the trade-off is worth it. George spent 3 years in Pittsburgh with people questioning whether he'd ever get there. Dallas is the first place where the answer actually looks like yes. But it is a gamble every time he does it. However, across 3 years in Pittsburgh and 1 monster year in Dallas, that gamble has paid off more times than it's costed him. You don't have to run every route full speed if you can win the ball when it actually matters the most, and Pickens is proof. So there you have it. Watch this next video if you haven't already, and subscribe if you're new. Thanks for watching.